Generally, like I said, you either operate. I mean, of course, the segmentation for both businesses and individuals is still the same. Whether you operate, I mean, the legal structure now it will still is still the same. Whether you're operating as an enterprise or what they call business name, or you're operating as an individual. I mean, or you're also operating as a corporate entity. All of that also, of course, will always determine what your exposure is. So when it comes to digital uh, or e-commerce businesses, so e-commerce business activities, whatever it is that you do under the using any platform, would always bear in mind that, of course, you're still going to prepare your accounts or your profit or loss to show what again you've been able to generate from that activity. So the when it comes to um, let me just say a bit of what happened even before this holistic reform. Nigeria has done a whole lot with respect to the digital economy. So there's really nothing so much that happened within the reform. A lot has been. Remember before the reform, there's been a lot of finance acts. So there's been a lot of finance acts starting from 2020 or 2019 finance acts up until 2023. So we've always had finance acts. Those finance acts came up with a lot of changes within the digital space. Of course, recognizing the fact that businesses have shifted from the physical to the digital. All right. So now, for example, one of the changes that happened in 2019 was to say that if you are a supplier, because we looked at it from suppliers of digital services into Nigeria, right? This is because the biggest channel of uh, tax avoidance or biggest channel of profit shifting has always been cross-border interactions. Yeah, so if you are in the economy, for example, dealing with each other, there's always a way to get. Government has always has a way of tracking and exchanging information internally. So, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, and Mr. Yen also mentioned it through Joint Revenue Board, and even before Joint Revenue, there has been JTB. There's a lot of collaboration that is happening right within. But again, where the challenge when it comes to digital economy, the real digital economy that we always focus on to a large extent is those doing business across borders, right? Especially when it has to do with supply, because Nigeria is largely a consumer economy, right? So we consume products, physical products, we consume digital products and services. So, so on that point, from that point, in 2019, I mean, there was an enactment that introduced what was significant economic presence order. So that order kind of mandates suppliers of digital services. It could be the likes of Spotify supplying music, live streaming or I'm sorry, music streaming platforms that you subscribe to. So all of those people, Netflix, videos streaming platforms, and all of those platforms, Meta, even the cloud services providers like Amazon, all of those people provide one service or the other to Nigerians, right, operating the digital space. So they have been mandated to pay corporate income tax as long as their supplies for a year, is up to 25 million. So if you're supplying services to Nigeria and end up to 25 million of you're expected to pay corporate income tax. Now, for value-added tax again, there also is a subsequent amendment that also mandates them also to charge VAT on those services because again, we know that VAT is on destination principle, right? So from that 2019 up to now, up to as we speak, a number of them are in the tax net. They are paying taxes, both the VAT and corporate taxes to Nigeria. They have been complying again, largely complying those in that digital space. So because even at the global stage, when you hear digital economy, that's what they're referring to, not people using maybe online to connect to their customers to deliver goods physically. So for example, if I have to, if I run a restaurant and I use a platform to connect to my customer, the guy, and I use a logistic, let's say a rider to dispatch it and all of that, you will not be completely categorized as a digital before within the digital economy per se, right? Because the entire thing has to happen end to end. So if you're looking at Netflix, for example, it's end to end, right? So everything is end to end within the app. Everything happens there. So that is more like what when you hear digital economy within the tax space, that's where the focus really is. So because the other ones, of course, you have to have it. If you run a restaurant, ordinarily it's easy to track you to your where you do all of that. So, but if you operate, if you say, for example, those ones are the Netflix, for example, is a non-resident company. It's situated elsewhere, right? And then again, it's supplying services end to end to Nigerians. So again, though there are still a bit of challenges, especially when it comes to B2C. What I mean by B2, because if you're operating within the e-commerce segment, you have what we call B2B and then B2C. So for B2B businesses, of course, the law has been simplified to say, look, if, for example, Netflix is, you pay your subscription to Netflix, right? The invoice, of course, Netflix invoiced you. So Netflix is supposed to include a VAT to the total amount you're going to pay. So when you are paying, right, for business to business, right, so the business is expected to deduct that VAT, yeah, and remit to government, because the VAT actually is not for Netflix. It's Nigeria, because the consumption of that services was done in Nigeria, and the people that consume the services are in Nigeria. All right, so that is in place. But where we have challenge is business to customers, B2C, for example. So individual, this is at individual level. So you be able to coordinate individuals to be able to be deducting VAT and remit it to government is a bit of a challenge, which I believe further provisions should be done to be able to tighten those ends. So, but largely, we're evolving. I believe, right? Even the reform that we're talking about, and I also believe, in no distant time, there's also going to be the need for also to take a look at it to see, okay, are there things that are coming up that we need to look at? Are there things that we need to review? Are there things to also? So I believe that will also happen going forward.